Alright, killers, it's Nate from the 80/20 Drummer. Back at you to do hopefully another short one and hopefully a kill two birds with one stone lesson. People have been asking me to do a lesson on Nate Wood for ages, and longtime fans of the channel will know that Nate Wood was actually my interview guest last fall, and of course I'll link to that interview. Obviously he's one of my favorite musicians and just philosophizers about music and art. A lot of great stuff in that interview. But one reason I haven't really done a lesson on how to play like Nate Wood is that the difficulty level of almost everything he does is sky high. But I think I found a good example to use for Nate, and it dovetails with another question I've been getting, which is this particular type of odd meter, which is 15/8 or 15/16, or this 4/4 with a limp, where you have one bar that's, how do I put this? It feels like 4/4, except you lose a beat every measure. And it's tough because it's hard to find a big beat or a common denominator. So Nate conquers this particularly well on a tune on my friend Ben Wendell's record, Frame, which I continue to revisit because it's one of my favorite records of the last decade. Anyway, the tune Backbow has two sections, and the section I'm going to speak about is in 15/8. As a filter to show you guys how Nate conquers 15/8, and then a few ideas about what you can do about it. Okay, so first things first, what is 15/8? So 15/8 is obviously, if you're taking a normal bar of 4/4, which is 3, 4, and you just leave off 1/16 note at the end of that. So let me see if I can even do this. So it's not strict 7, it's got an extra 16th, but it's not strict 4 either, it's 1/16 fewer. So the way Ben makes this easy and intuitive to play is he's got a clave going on. And that's just bounce, 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 bounce. And I'll loop in the song, or you'll hear the song at the beginning of the track so you'll be able to hear it. But let me play you, first of all, a completely prescribed beat that's going to be transcribed that you can just learn. And the most basic form of that is without worrying about your left foot at all. It's just right hand on hats, rock beat style. So it'll be, and I'll count this off in 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so starting from that, there are a few things you can do before we complicate it with the hats. You can take that basic framework of just and you can vary the bass drum. So if you had to play this song tomorrow, there are a number of ways you could make it nuanced just by practicing that clave and that sort of, we'll call it cascara, why not, over the top of it. So obviously the basic is, but you can also do something like this, 2, 3, 4. So we'll leave that there for now. Just the possibility of bass drum variations while keeping the hands the same. We'll revisit it in a little greater detail when we move the right hand away from the hats and onto other surfaces and allow us to add the left foot. So now we get into a difficulty, because what are you going to play with your left foot? So, by the way, for purposes of describing the tune, I'm going to assume Ben wrote it in 15/16. So, in other words, if it's quarters would be here, 2, 3, 4. Eighths would be here, 2, 3, 4. Dotted quarters would be, etc. So, with reference to the 15/16, what Nate does is he plays dotted quarters on the hats, which is kind of the cool lowest common denominator, because 15 divided by 3 is 5. As if it's in a big 5 with the triplet being the common denominator rather than the 16th. So let me show you what that would look like. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I just want to help you guys keep your reference, so I may stop frequently and count it off again. So one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's going to be transcribed. Practice that, and it's here I want to bring in a concept that's really central to my approach to drumming, which I'll talk about my products, the 80/20 roadmap and the coaching course at the end. What separates the great players from the average ones is the ability to play clean, the ability to play in time, and what I call upload speed, the ability to communicate their ideas clearly, whatever those ideas are. So when we talk about playing clean, one of the chief aspects of that is when two limbs are supposed to be playing together, are they really playing together? Or are you playing? So this dotted quarter hi-hat pattern is the perfect avenue to practice this in a way that'll kind of throw you off your balance a little bit, because it's in an unexpected place. So I'm going to play it more slowly now and really just watch how I'm trying to make sure that every time two limbs are supposed to hit together, they really do. They lock up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so with that in mind, the concept of making sure whatever you introduce, your limbs are playing together cleanly in this personal drum troupe way, let me introduce a couple of bass drum variations. And I'm going to do this in real time. I'm just going to play for you, and I'm going to introduce them, and then I'm just going to transcribe it after the fact and give it to you. So let's do this. I'm going to start and play the basic variation for a little bit, and then I'm going to introduce 3 or 4 other variations. And they'll be written out for you like a John Riley exercise, so you can go through them all like it's the New Breed book. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I think that was either 4 or 5, and that's just a little bit of the variations you can do with that. So now I want to talk about another hi-hat placement, which is 8th notes, which allows you to really feel how the clavier of the beat reverses in relationship to a constant underlying pulse. So this is sort of one level of difficulty up, but it's cool practice to really challenge yourself. Plus, it introduces some hi-hat variations you can do with the open hat. So that'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So right away, that opens up the possibility of throwing an offbeat on the open hat with the left hand, which is kind of a cool, Dave Weckl, Vinny era funk thing that a lot of the gospel drummers have attributed, and practically everybody does now. But you can only do it on the bar where your hi-hat is landing on the downbeat. So in the first bar, it's going, but then when it recycles, it's going. So you can't do it on the second bar. So what I do is I put it on the first bar and then nothing on the second bar, and then you can do a variation where you're doing a rim shot on the snare drum. Again, this will all be transcribed, so let me demonstrate. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's one cool thing you can do with the hi-hat on eighth notes. All right, so the last hi-hat variation I'm going to give you guys is also the most difficult, which is quarters on the hi-hats. And the reason it's the most difficult is because it's basically a 4-bar cycle where every repetition through the pattern, your hat will lag behind what your other limbs are playing by one more 16th note. So rather than try to think of them as totally independent, I just think about where the hat falls. So before we get any deeper, let me just play this for you so you can hear. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that sounds difficult, but you don't need to practice the entire thing as a single chunk. You can practice the transitions. So for instance, when you're going from the first part to the second part, the hat will switch places from the downbeat to the E of the 16th note. So it'll go from 1E into 2E into to 1E into 2E into. And you can find the spot where that happens and you can loop those. So it happens here. 3, 4. Right? Where that 7/16 part switches over to 8/16, and now your 3 other limbs are 1/16 ahead of your hats. So what do? You just loop that bar. So 2, 3, 4. Right, so you can isolate that transition and just loop that, and then you can do the next one where it goes from the E to the and. So that'll sound like this. 3, 4. And so on and so forth until you've got it all down. This is kind of a varsity challenge, but I think it would be a cool thing for some people to do, and then maybe post your videos on my Facebook page and I can share them. That would be awesome. So the other cool thing about this is if you record yourself and play it back and start to hear it from the reference point of the quarter, you hear this really cool way that the beat turns around within the bigger beat. And I'm not going to get into that too much. I'll just let you experience it. But it kind of also puts you in the headspace of Nate and Tigran and the way they're kind of feeling the bigger beat so they can improvise all this sophisticated stuff over it. All sorts of other things you can do with it. You can do orchestration things. So if you're actually playing the song, one cool thing to do is to switch between the dotted quarters and the eighths on the hat. So 3, 4. Whatever, so that's one thing. There are a lot of other places you can go with it. Nate and Tigran get into triplets. I think we've covered enough for one lesson. So hopefully you'll find this helpful. Guys, it's time for the learn more about me portion of the lesson. If you found any of this lesson helpful, you're new to the channel, you want to learn more, I recommend you check out something called the 80/20 Roadmap. It's a video I made with transcriptions included that will quickly help you address the 3 major mistakes most drummers make. And just by focusing on those things and only those things, you'll see an acceleration in how quickly you can improve. And if you dig that, you should learn more about the coaching course, which is my flagship product. But we'll start with the roadmap. It's $5, it's dope as hell, and I believe it'll help you. Guys, it's been fun. Once again, it's been a fun challenge to make a lesson for you. Want to thank Ben and Nate for the inspiration. Love all you guys. Thanks so much. See you next week.